Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. So Steve Borthwick has named his England squad for the upcoming Six Nations, his first squad since taking over as head coach. I've been here at Twickenham where he has had his press conference. He's been doing his various different media duties. So in this video, I'm going to get into the squad, get into some of the omissions, some of the people called up, and generally just some observations from being here and being in that press conference earlier today. Steve Borthwick and the whole way in which he's conducting himself at the moment as England head coach is very, very interesting indeed. If you are new here, do subscribe to the channel. Lots of content coming up throughout the Six Nations, and also drop a comment down below. Squad selection is such a topic of debate amongst fans, always players who are favoured by certain fans and people that others want to see in which don't necessarily get selected. So do drop a comment down below and give me your thoughts overall of what you make of this first England squad. All right, let's get into it. So I feel like there's so much to potentially get into with this squad. We could talk about the back row, we could talk about the props, the second row, the different elements of the team, how we think England might set up. So I'm just going to kind of go through a couple of different points that I think are interesting. I won't be able to cover absolutely everyone, so that's why I want you guys to drop comments down below. In terms of just a little bit of housekeeping, I suppose, some bullet points to get us started. The uncapped players in the squad: Ollie Hassel-Collins, Finn Smith, George McGuigan, Jack Walker and Caden Murley. They all come in. There's lots of kind of players returning as well, some who've been out longer than others, but the likes of Dan Cole, he hasn't played for England since the World Cup final in 2019. Ben Curry comes back in. Ben Earl is given a call up as well. Alex Mitchell, Max Malins, Elliot Daly, loads of different guys in there that are kind of coming back in, some of which have been capped before. But I think that's quite interesting in terms of what Steve Borthwick has selected. And then the headlines in terms of the players that are left out, in terms of the more experienced players, it's Billy Vunipola, Johnny May and Jack Noel. And also just a word as well on players that many fans may have wanted to see in the squad that haven't got a call up, in terms of Adam Radwan, Val Rapava-Ruskin and Ollie Lawrence as well. So I'll go through some of those selections in this video, but I wanted to start off actually by talking about Steve Borthwick overall and the way in which he came across today, and also the way in which he's coming across since he took over as England head coach, because he sat down at the start of the press conference today, and the way they do it, before journalists get an opportunity to ask the questions, he can basically just do a little speech, talk about some things that he wants to talk about in terms of naming his squad. And we all saw when Steve Borthwick was the head coach of Leicester that the speaking to the media and things like that, I don't think is his favourite part of the job. But he sat down and he didn't have any notes in front of him. There wasn't an auto cue at the back of the room, and just went through this speech, which he'd clearly spent a lot of time memorising and prepping and getting right, which is an insight into him as a character, I think, in that it's not his forte, it's not what he enjoys doing the most, but he's taken it really, really seriously, virtually memorising a speech which went through his squad and what he'd selected and why, and it was just really interesting, I think, seeing him. And he was incredibly engaging, and I think he has brought a real sense of optimism to this England squad, and they haven't kicked a ball yet. Let's see what happens out on the pitch, but I think the way in which Steve Borthwick so far is conducting himself is very, very interesting indeed. In terms of what he did talk about and the squad he selected, he spoke about the experience. He said it's got over 1,000 caps, 700 of those in the Six Nations. He also made a real point of talking about how there's a mix of guys, some experienced guys, some people coming through, and then importantly as well, some guys that are displaying really good form at the moment as well. Whereas you think about the Eddie Jones era, and often the complaint of those England squads was he wasn't picking players on form, whereas Steve Borthwick has made a point of saying a number of those selections have come from players that are on form in the Gallagher Premiership at the moment. So I think it's an interesting squad. As I said at the top of the video, it's always a bone of contention amongst fans. You're never going to please everyone when it comes to squad selection, but I think overall it's a good squad. It's an interesting squad. There are players that maybe I would have liked to seen in there, but I don't have too many complaints with the direction that he has taken. So Ben Earl, I think, is one of the big ones. Him coming back in, I think what England do in that back row is going to be absolutely fascinating with the options they've got there. I'm really pleased to see Ben Earl and Ben Curry actually come back in. You remember with Ben Curry, he was set to make his England debut years ago, got injured. Tom Curry, his brother, then replaced him, and it's Tom Curry that has gone on and has got over many caps. He's become a bit of a superstar, and Ben Curry is stuck on one England cap, so I'm delighted for him. I think he could really make a statement. And Ben Earl as well, who's been the player of the season last year in the Gallagher Premiership, so dynamic. I think he brings something completely different to that England back row. It's been absolutely sensational. So I hope he gets his opportunity. This obviously is quite a big squad, just a training squad at the moment. I would love to see Ben Earl in some capacity. And I think England, when you look at the back row options, Jack Willis is still named in there, Ben Curry, Ben Earl, they have a lot of options to be able to really go at the breakdown, which has been somewhere they've often been beaten by teams in terms of winning penalties. I think England have got back row options now, and it does depend how you want to pick them, but options for what they can do in terms of really competing at that breakdown. So I'm excited to see that. Dan Cole returning, I mentioned it in a video where I kind of picked my England squad and immediately regretted some of my selections on the channel a couple of days ago. Dan Cole I think is a fascinating one. He is there to shore up England's scrum. England have had a really poor scrum over the last 12 months. It's been one of the weakest areas of their game, and Dan Cole doesn't necessarily offer you around the park what many other players do, but he can still scrummage, even at this point in his career. I think that's a selection which is very much about the England set piece, and the set piece kind of will define the whole game plan at this level. If England can get that right and get a strong set piece and get themselves front football, then they have the ability to hurt teams with the quality they have out wide. Speaking of out wide, Elliot Daly returns, who has been in brilliant form for Saracens. I've often questioned some of his performances at international level even before he got dropped, but he's been brilliant for Saracens. So whether he comes back in the centres, in the back three, we'll wait and see. And then you've got the likes of Tommy Freeman in there, Ollie Hassel-Collins, Caden Murley. I think it's a little bit more dynamism, a little bit more explosiveness and pace amongst those back three options for England, which they've been lacking recently, haven't they? I mean, dropping Jack Nolan, Johnny May, you are probably going for more youth and giving yourself a bit more pace, and I think England have made that decision. Steve Borthwick has made that decision. I'm excited to see how they go about operating as well. Alex Mitchell back in, again a guy who's picked up kind of one cap. Northampton fans for a long time have been saying how much they'd like him to get more of an opportunity, so let's see how much he plays. Ben Youngs is still there, Jack Van Portfleet as well, but Alex Mitchell, who's so key to Northampton, the way in which Northampton play can really take the game by the scruff of the neck, maybe see him get an opportunity as well. I did mention in the left outs, just to jump across to that, Adam Radwan, Rapava Ruskin and Ollie Lawrence. I think Val Rapava Ruskin and Ollie Lawrence are two that I actually maybe would have liked to see in this squad. I didn't actually pick Ollie Lawrence, which was a mistake on my part. When I went through the squad I would pick, but he's been playing really well for Bath. And I spoke about that scrum. Val Rapava Ruskin, one of the best props in the Gallagher Premiership at the moment in terms of what he's doing at the scrummage. So I wondered whether we might see him involved, but he's going to have to wait for another opportunity. Just in terms of some other stuff as well, Owen Farrell is going to be the captain, Ellis, Genge and Courtney will be the vice captains, and Steve Borthwick has stressed how much of an important role that's going to be. But I often, on the comment section of these videos, when I do something and mention Owen Farrell, there's often some people that say that Owen Farrell is kind of past it and that he should be dropped, which I find absolutely bonkers. And once again, Steve Borthwick in the press conference today made the point of speaking about what an important character Owen Farrell is, how driven he is and what he brings to this England team and what he will continue to bring to it. So I don't think it's any real surprise, certainly not a surprise he's selected, and he will be the captain going forward. And Steve Borthwick was asked about it and he said he wants the best person for the job and he believes that is Owen Farrell. So Owen Farrell will be the England captain. That's kind of my original thoughts on the squad. I'll do another video maybe in the coming days with a little bit more in depth. This was just a bit more about getting some immediate reaction, but do drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think of Steve Borthwick's first England squad. As I say, I've been impressed with the way in which he is conducting himself as head coach. I think there's some interesting selections in there as well, and how England are going to play in the Six Nations will be absolutely fascinating. Subscribe to the channel, drop a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.